Hello, Riders and Rangers! Welcome to How to Fix Samurai Part 3. To summarize the previous two parts, the Shiba Samurai clan originated from Japan. Centuries ago, they moved to Aromaport City when the samurai were forced into retirement. However, there were Nighlok attacks in the area, so the Shiba clan's leader recruited 4 warriors of different origins to become samurai. They pushed the Nighloks back, but each generation, the Nighlok would return, so these samurai warriors trained their descendants how to fight the Nighloks through the use of swords and their symbol power known as Calligraphone Generated Innovation, CGI for short. Currently, the Shiba clan is led by Lauren Shiba, who tries to distance herself from her vassals and is emotionally aloof. It takes time for her to warm up to her fellow samurai. It is believed that she should be some sort of overpowered Mary Sue. Kevin is the most well-trained. He is Lauren's self-proclaimed right-hand man and focuses on traditional samurai hierarchy. Mia is also a skilled fighter and she acts like the mother of the group. Free-spirited Mike has the most potential but is still playing catch-up in terms of power. Emily is the youngest member and soothes the team from each other's aggression. Newest 6th Ranger is Antonio, whom is neither a samurai as he is not of samurai descent. He is the Gold Ninja Ranger, and he has much to learn about the samurai. Our boss villain is Zandrid, who nearly annihilated the Samurai Rangers in the previous generation battle before Lauren. He is still recovering from a failed attempt by the Samurai Rangers. His plan is to flood the human realm with Sanji River waters. Cthulhu is his advisor who plans out different ways to create human suffering, which would overflow the Sanji River, and he holds a strange grudge towards the Samurai Rangers. He is the only Nighlok that knows how to use CGI. Dayu is Zandrid's right-hand woman who plays her harmonium to soothe Zandrid's constant pain and headaches. She has a secretive past which made her cruel and wretched. Nighloks need a huge surge of Zandrid's power of hate to enter the human realm. With that being said, bring out your calligraphones. Ready? Samurai Fortify! In the Sanji River, there are many different Nighloks factions still in slumber. Apparently, it seems like only Zandrid's clan is awake. Nighloks Soul Lifter appears before Zandrid as a representative of his Nighloks king who has recently woke up. The king proposes some form of alliance with Zandrid. Zandrid, being preoccupied with recovering, made Cthulhu pass some of the CGI to Soul Lifter. Reluctantly, Cthulhu combined Zandrid's rage with CGI so the Nighloks could enter the human realm. When the Soul Lifter was gone, Cthulhu explains the other Nighloks masters might try to take over Zandrid's rightful place as the ruler of the Sanji River. Zandrid tells him any methods to increase the waters is necessary. Cthulhu is worried his CGI powers might fall into the wrong hands. With the Nighloks becoming stronger during the summer, G reveals that the Samurai Rangers need the black box to counter the increasing threat. It was incomplete by the previous generations and was lost when the Shiba Mansion was ransacked. Note, the Shiba Mansion has been ransacked many times when their defense has fallen. The Tengen Gate owners, allies of the Shiba clan, picked up a trace of it. Antonio also revealed he has recreated a character that prevents Nighloks from escaping them again. Mike and Kevin have been trying to help Antonio to finish the Homar's folding Zord, but were unable to. Mike's CGI tree characteristics of living brought it to life. Unless Kevin doubles his CGI water element, Homar's folding Zord is not powerful enough to transform into Megazord size, or warrior mode. The other CGI elements don't help with the process of Zord craftsmanship, but would be useful during battles. The 3 decides to take a break and help the others, preparing a surprise birthday party for Emily. Meanwhile, there is a frail blonde lady from Staunton Creek Farm holding a picture of Emily, looking for her. The party preparations are interrupted by the Nighloks Soul Lifter attacks the city and devours people's souls. Antonio arrives late to the battle after encountering Decker, whom he believes to be an eccentric food critic. When a young wealthy man's soul was about to be stolen, Emily jumps in and took the blow for him instead. Emily's soul has been stolen by the Nighloks, leaving her in comatose. It was revealed a body without a soul can only last for a day. By the time he reaches the battle, Antonio sensed that this Nighloks is different and quickly carved a symbol on the Nighloks before it escaped. Despite the male Samurai Rangers' attempt to stop him, the Nighloks retreats into the Sanji River. Back in the Sanji River water, Cthulhu helps to rehydrate the Nighloks. Cthulhu quietly sees the character carved into Soul Lifter's body, sees the character, and copies it down, saying Antonio will never be worthy of being a Samurai Ranger. When the Soul Lifter asks what Cthulhu is doing while he is copying the symbol down, Cthulhu says it's nothing, just a puzzle he is trying to solve. The next day, Emily regains consciousness just long enough to acknowledge her impending death, but she is calm and apologizes for her failure. Emily drifting in and out of consciousness, she starts talking about how the one person who could always comfort her when she felt low was her sister, Gaia. Emily says she will remain smiling whatever happens. She much rather to meet her end surrounded by friends rather than being alone. She only wishes Gaia was there too. For the first time, we see Lauren emoting in front of her vessels. She freaks out over Emily's demise, losing composure, holding on to Emily, which was a disheartening sight for other rangers. Then there was a knock on the Shiba mansion door. It was some frail lady looking for Emily. She claims to be the real Samurai Yellow, and she is Emily's sister, Gaia Anaori. To the team's surprise, Gaia was originally chosen to be Samurai Yellow, trained all her life to be a ranger, but because of some untreatable illness, Emily's sister became unfit for battle. The family was hoping for the Nighloks to not attack this generation and wait for the next one. The previous Samurai Yellow is in no shape to fight, and is too weak. However, when Samurai Yellow was summoned by Lauren, Emily decided against her family's wishes and pulled a Mulan to fight in her sister's place, to protect her. Gaia has been looking all over the state, planning to secretly bring her home without the Shiba clan knowing. Gaia was heartbroken when she realized Soul Lifter took Emily's soul. Gaia was the one who taught her to smile whatever happens, because it feels like it will remove the misery and gloom despite the situation for everyone. Gaia tells the Rangers not to blame themselves, as this war against the Nighloks isn't going to be rainbows and unicorns. There will be collateral damage. This is why the samurai fight. To fight for others' smiles. An enraged Mike runs back to the location where the Nighloks Soul Lifter left and calls for it, but he is unsuccessful. As Lauren, Mia, and Kevin catches up to Mike, Gecko arrives and tells him that they can enter the Santa River by giving up their humanity and becoming half Nighloks, just as he had. Mike volunteered to become a Nighloks if it means saving Emily and the other victims. But Antonio arrives with an alternative plan to both drag out the Soul Lifter and power up his Homaris Folding Zord. He sensed there is something different about this Nighloks, and he could use the Homaris Folding Zord to fish it out. Using CGI power with a character that Antonio invented, the group manages to drag Soul Lifter back into their world and destroy him before he has a chance to escape. When the Nighloks revives as a giant, and to the other samurai's surprise, Antonio was able to use the Homaris Folding Zord to battle against the giant Soul Lifter and his Mega Zazoth minions. He transforms the Homaris Folding Zord into warrior mode. With assistance from the Samurai Megazord, they destroy its second life, freeing all of the souls to return to their bodies. Once the battle was over, Emily was recovered. Mike asks, why did Emily hide the fact from them? Emily says she does not want the team to see her as a burden. Lawrence says since the first day, she never saw her as a burden, but one of the pillars of the team. Emily asks for Gaia's blessing to take her place and explains that her sister has spent all her life protecting and looking after her. It is time for Emily to pay her back. Gaia finally gave her blessings to carry on the torch of becoming Samurai Yellow. That evening, Emily's birthday goes on without a hitch. It ended with Gaia saying how proud of her she is. Gaia knows this samurai team are very close as family. It wouldn't be as powerful without Emily in it. Later, Gaia spoke to Lauren quietly, telling Lauren showing her emotions won't make her weak, but shows her appreciation of her vessels, which would make the entire team stronger than ever. Lauren quietly nodded. Meanwhile, Kevin asked Antonio how he was able to power up the Homaris Folding Zord. Antonio said he has sensed the aura of CGI water element surrounding Soul Lifter, and that symbol actually drains CGI from the Nighloks and be placed into the Zord. Antonio says the water CGI that surrounds that Nighloks felt like it's Kevin's CGI power of water. Kevin remains quiet and praises Antonio's success, which made his day, of course. Kevin solemnly reflects on what Antonio had said earlier. Mike overhears this. To Cthulhu's surprise, after analyzing the symbol he has copied from the Soul Lifter, he concluded it acted like a vacuum and sucked his CGI out of the Nighloks when activated, even to the point of fishing the Nighloks out of the Sanja River. Cthulhu was enraged at how his powers were used by the enemies. He swears to write a counter symbol to nullify it. Cthulhu also cursed the Shiba clan for allowing the younger sister of the Samurai Ranger to be a successor. How unfair the situation is. Back in Antonio's sushi cart, Antonio is continuing his research for the Mosasaurus disc, using detective work, scans, and ancient literature cross-references while Mike speaks to him. Mike is starting to doubt Kevin's loyalty to the Shiba clan. Antonio tries to reassure him to trust Kevin. Then one of his best customers, Towson Ao, son of a wealthy business family, comes by. He asks Antonio for a favor if Antonio can convince Emily to masquerade as a wealthy son's fiancée at a high society party. He wants to pay Emily back for rescuing him from Nighloks Soul Lifter from earlier. As Zandrid is resting, a tarantula Nighloks approaches Cthulhu and proposes an alliance. He has been excommunicated by Zandrid for his betrayal. Knowing how Zandrid has become so weak, he he coerces Cthulhu to join him to destroy Zandrid and steal his powers. Turns out, Zandrid's weakened state has been leaked out and some Nighloks are plotting against him. Cthulhu states it's a silly plan as Zandrid, even at this state, won't be so easily assassinated. The Tarantula Nighloks says the sealing symbol would take care of Zandrid and they can rule the Zandrid River together. Cthulhu, having his own agenda of discovering the sealing symbol, decides to temporarily team up with his own agenda. The Tarantula Nighlok was given some CGI power by Cthulhu that could make him undetectable by the samurai temporarily, but this still isn't strong enough to enter the Shiba house, but is strong enough to infiltrate the Shiba allies' bases. How come Cthulhu knows so much about CGI camouflage? Meanwhile, waiting for the news on the black box, Antonio proposes to Emily to pretend to be his friend's wealthy fiancé to the Rangers and G. Emily is baffled as she grew up on a modest farm and knows not anything about high class. Antonio suggests that Lauren can teach her how to act like a high-end princess, since the Shiba clan is quite wealthy. Not only does Emily agree, but Lauren also agreed to propose as her maid despite Kevin's protests. Meanwhile, the Nighloks Tarantula finds out about this and prepares to plot against Lauren. Meanwhile, Cthulhu and another Nighloks Wisp appear. Cthulhu tells the Nighloks Wisp to act as their distraction and use its ability. The Nighloks Wisp sucks the life out of people when they are at their happiest. Kevin alerts Lauren, who leaves the party abruptly with Emily and Antonio to join their teammates and engage the Nighloks Wisp, who summons Azazel to keep the Samurai Rangers occupied as he retreats. Lauren still senses the Nighloks Wisp's presence as she and Emily still kept up with the charade. They leave for her dinner with a wealthy son. This news broke the hearts of many gold diggers, making the plan work very well. Emily feels uncomfortable that Lauren is acting as her maid and excuses herself. Lauren tells Emily it's fine, and Emily should be herself when she's around Lauren. For example, Kevin shows his attribute, not shying away from being who he is around Lauren, an overbearing and over-emotional samurai, but that's what makes him powerful with passion. Smitten with Emily's kindness and pure heart, Carlson is about to confess his feelings when the Nighloks Wisp is revealed to be hiding in his jacket. The Nighloks begins to suck the life out of him. Thinking quickly, Emily pretends to be extremely shallow, making sure that the wealthy son hears and sees her slapping and berating Lauren, telling her to save him so she could actually marry into money. Lauren quickly catches this on to Emily's ruse and plays along. Carlson is heartbroken. Severe life-sucking Nighloks Wisp hold on him. The other Samurai Rangers arrive to offer assistance. The Samurai Yellow takes down Nighloks Wisp before he is destroyed, while Megazord deals with Azazel. The Homaris Folding Zord and Tethuda Folding Zord combine into Homaris Zord, destroy the Nighloks' second life. After the fight, Carlson thanks Emily for saving his life twice, and seeing that she deeply cares for Lauren, parts ways with her amicably. So maybe there is an implied message? I don't really read too much into Ranger romances. You do your own theory, this is how I feel when I see romances in Power Rangers, since season 1 between Tommy and Kimberly. She sends the samurai to the Tengen Temple as they found the black box. Arriving at the Tengen Temple, the burial grounds of the Shiba house, the Samurai Rangers are given the black box after Lauren visits the tombstone of her father. The Tarantula Nighloks that sneaked into the area, apparently, there was also many tombstones of powerful warriors who were mysteriously slaughtered in the previous century. They were slaughtered by an unnamed Ronin who used to be associated with the Shiba clan. Simultaneously, the Tarantula Nighloks makes his move as Lauren has been poisoned by Cthulhu. While the vessels are overpowered by the Nighloks, Cthulhu appears and offers Lauren the antidote if she reveals the sealing character to him. After attempting to get Deku to sample sushi, Antonio arrives and fights Cthulhu, but loses to him. Cthulhu seems to have an extra giant grudge towards Antonio, saying how he will only be a lowly sushi ninja and will never be able to find the Mozosaurus disc. He will never be a true Samurai Ranger and will never be a samurai of the Shiba clan. Antonio writes the same symbol that he wrote previously onto the soul-lifting Nighloks. After writing it on Cthulhu, he was able to produce a hex that cancelled out the draining power, rendering it useless. This explains what Cthulhu could do with the sealing symbol. He could learn how to nullify it and help Zandrid. At the last second, Decker arrives and takes Lauren as he has shown his true form to Antonio. Antonio says he recognizes that form, and that is the legendary samurai armor, but it's corrupted. Before the Tarantula Nighloks almost destroys the Rangers, back in Sandra River, Zandrid woke up. He drags the Tarantula Nighloks back into his realm as he punishes it for acting behind his back. With poetic irony, Zandrid made the Nighloks Tarantula lose control from the excess amount of power given to him, and kicks him back into the human realm, causing rampage. Entrusted with the black box after Lauren gave it to one of the Tengen monks prior to Cthulhu's attack, Antonio has to complete the black box while the vessels have their wounds tended to. Back in the Sandra River, Cthulhu gains Zandrid's forgiveness as he explains it was to discover the sealing symbol power. Xandris gives Dayu the task of destroying Decker, while the Tarantula Nighlok loses his mind from being consumed. He starts rampaging across the city. Meanwhile, Decker forcefully cures Lorne of Cthulhu's poison, revealing his reasons so that he could fight Lorne at her full strength. From there, Decker reveals how he and Lorne are very much alike, acting outside of the norms of Bushido to further their personal goals. Lorne says she is nothing like Decker. Decker says he was once a samurai ranger and was also an outsider. Isn't that how Lorne feels? Decker knows the truth about her, and he was the real reason why G was so behemoth in training her. Lorne also asks what is the vow that ties her with Decker. Decker says it is the vow made by Lorne's mother. Also, the fire CGI within Lorne, it once belonged to him, but he passed it all into Lorne to the point he could no longer use CGI. Sneaking up on them, Dayu has successfully tracked the two, but for some reason, she couldn't bring herself to end Decker. She confronts and asks Decker if he remembers this type of sakura tree in the forest at all. Decker tells her to stop, and he has completely forgotten about his past when he became a Nighlok. The next day, Antonio struggles in creating the black box. He is plagued by self-doubt from the words of Cthulhu. He also looked over the mountains over research paper and works, photos, to find the Mosasaurus disc, which reminds him of what Cthulhu said. He will never find it. Encouraging Antonio, the other Samurai Rangers gave them their CGI power stored in the folding Zord discs, showing their faith in them. They then head out to fight the out-of-control Nighlok to give Antonio more time. It is just enough to allow him to complete it, retrieving Lorne and bringing her to the fight. Antonio bestowed his lord the black box. Lorne transforms and uses the black box to gain the battleizer Daimyo mode, slaying all the Azazoth company and the overpowered Nighlok. When the Nighloks resurrects into a giant with Azazoths, the Samurai Rangers use the black box and the new True Samurai combination disc to combine all the personal Zords together into Ultimate Samurai Megazord to take out the Azazoths. Lorne later returns to the Tengen Temple to visit the tombstone of the warriors slain by Decker. Thinking of Decker's words, what does he mean why G has trained her so behemothly? As Lorne prepares to duel with Decker, Xandris, furious with Dayu for not killing Decker, as he had commanded her to do so, set fire towards her beloved instrument when she was provoked him to kill her. A devastated Dayu flees into the human realm to search for the life force of ideal victims which could repair her damaged instrument. She runs into Mia, and the two battle until the Nighlok hypnotist arrives. He has been tasked to bring Dayu back to the underworld. He puts Dayu into deep sleep, but when the Samurai Rangers arrive, Dayu escapes. Samurai Pink and Samurai Yellow gave chase. Antonio arrives, but the Nighlok puts him to sleep, then uses him as a gateway to find Dayu's location. At the same time, Antonio found the Mosasaurus disc and is celebrated for being able to find it, finally becoming a Samurai Ranger. In his dreams, of course. This time, the Nighloks succeeds in sending Dayu as well as Samurai Pink into the dream world. There we see Mia's past. Why Mia was so obsessed with cooking vegan food. It was for a boy she has a crush on, but he has never been interested in her. Snapping herself out of the dream, she entered Dayu's dream instead. Mia discovers Dayu's past. She was once a human woman. She was obsessed with Decker before he became a Nighlok. The same Sakura forest as we have seen before. Dayu was a mage of the Shiba clan, in charge of building to the Taurus folding Zord, and was trying to create a stable warrior mode. Decker was the one of the Shiba vessels that joined in the earlier generation. Originally, Decker was a decoy for the Shiba Lord, and later became the Sixth Ranger. Decker's obsession with fighting was his downfall. Decker finishing off Azazoth did not quench his thirst. He continued his murder spree and committing atrocities, murdering innocents for not willing to participate in his duel. He then was expelled from the Shiba house after he started slaughtering and challenging duels when the Nighlok threat was over. Reason why G feels iffy on Antonio joining, since Decker later became the Sixth Ranger after the secret was out. After being excommunicated, he stole the Shiba samurai armor from all the Samurai Rangers. With his corrupted state, he fused with his samurai armor and became almost like a skeletal demon. Dayu left her duties as she wanted to pursue Decker. She's still been a huge admirer of him after he committed all those atrocities. This led to the Taurus folding Zord to be completely unstable and unusable. It's sealed. Dayu tried to stop him, but his bloodlust continued and ignored her. Decker later started to develop an incurable disease and was dying. Dayu has been pursuing Decker all this time and wants to find a way to save him. No medicine was able to cure him though, thus she turns to dark magic to conjure Nighloks to help. However, a portal opened and energy burned the house down. As Decker meets his end from the fire, he chooses to reach for a sword, ignoring his admirer. As her moment of desperation and despair, the Nighlok King Traitor steps out of the portal. Dayu begs him to resurrect her loved one, but at the cost of both of them becoming Nighloks in exchange for their humanity. Both their humanity is trapped in the items they both carry of each other. When Decker was resurrected, he lost his memories except for his bloodlust, and continued seeking out worthy opponents to duel. In order for both to regain their humanity, Dayu will need to find a way to make Decker fall in love with her. She tried for centuries and nothing worked. Dayu, heartbroken, plays her harmonium in solitude until she was recruited by Zord, where she finds a new purpose. Meanwhile, Samurai Blue and Samurai Green enter the dream world to bring the hypnotic Nighloks back into the real world to awaken his victims and break his hold on them. Now that Mia knows her past, Dayu moves to kill her. Mia was immobilized by Dayu's traumatic past, so Emily jumps in to defend her and is injured. Cthulhu summons the giant Azazoths, so Samurai Red and Ninja Gold form the Homara Samurai Megazord to fight them. Though victorious, the two rangers are thoroughly exhausted from their battle. To make matters worse, Decker shows up and intent on fighting Lauren, right then and there, though Antonio attempts to reason with him. A company of Azazoth emerges, and Decker promptly slays them all before they can lay a hand on the humans, leaving Lauren time to heal, telling him that he'll go on a killing spree if Lauren doesn't fight him. Lauren then remembers Decker's slain civilians in the Tengen Temple, all the tombs, all the gravestones. He is not joking. Mia blames herself for hesitating to destroy Dayu. As Emily was injured, she threw away her cooking books. She saw this and asks why. Mia explains she needs to have resolve and the will to act. Her goal in the future is just a distraction. Mia sadly says the boy back home does not love her back. All this cooking vegan food was because she wants to gain his attention and affection. But after seeing Dayu's past, she has to let go of obsessing over this boy. Mia also asks G whether or not Shiba Clan has ever used a decoy. G hesitates and confirms this. Mia wonders what happened. G explains another time would be better. After wounding Emily, Dayu takes her leave as the hypnotic Nighloks retreats during his fight with Samurai Blue and Samurai Green. While a debate occurs at the mansion over if Lauren should accept Decker's challenge or not, with Kevin the only one against it as he believes her lordship is too important for the stray Nighloks. Lauren finally confronts G on what Decker told Lauren about her cursed existence. When she was poisoned before, she was rescued by Decker, who revealed to Lauren that her mother made a deal with her. During the fateful day when the Nighloks invaded the Shiba mansion, Lauren and her mother were on the brink of death when collapsed, burning pillars landed on them. But before Lauren's mother passed away, she called for a Nighloks not associated with Zord for help, and Decker answered. Lauren's mother asked Decker to save her daughter from the incoming Nighloks. Decker brought Lauren to G's doorstep with a note. The message said Decker has cursed Lauren by filling her up with his own CGI firepower. Unless she is to be trained to be a powerful warrior to duel him by adulthood, she will be incinerated by the fire CGI he has casted into her. She was raised to duel Decker, so either way, G must train Lauren to defend herself from Decker or she will die a horrific death, being burned alive. Decker had an insatiable thirst to fight for decades. Therefore, Lauren has to fight or she will die from the curse. G also revealed that Decker has left out some important parts of the sword. Decker also cursed Lauren to become a Nighloks when she lets go of her humanity, so he can fight her for eternity. But G trained Lauren's purpose for fighting is for humanity, as the descendant leader of the Shiba clan. But the moment Lauren gives into nihilism and lacks the purpose of fighting, that's when she will turn into a Nighloks. This revelation confused and shocked Lauren and her vassals. Kevin says Lauren is a fully fledged warrior and she will not suffer that terrible death, but still should not confront Decker for her own safety. Mia and Mike says if Decker doesn't have his duel, he might end up hurting civilians. Kevin suggests they confront Decker together, but Emily says if they all confront Decker, Decker must just leave and start killing civilians until Lauren complies. Also, the powerful Nighloks hypnotist threat is still out there. Meanwhile, Decker talks with Dayu, striking a nerve as she decides to live with her suffering to maintain her existence. Because once half Nighloks let go of the reason of why they became a Nighloks, they will cease to exist as well. The next day, with Kevin finally understanding her reasons, Lauren heads out to duel Decker when the Nighloks hypnotist resurfaces. Given the black box, Kevin leads the Samurai Rangers in battle before becoming Daimyo Blue to defeat the Nighloks and use Samurai Megazord to destroy him. Meanwhile, Mike still hesitates to trust Kevin, which made the battle not as smooth as it could have been. Samurai Red and Decker begins their duel to the death. At first, the duel was like a training where Decker is the teacher and Lauren is the student. Similar to Darth Vader and Luke over the Bespin in Empire Strikes Back. Decker kept on telling Lauren to let go of her humanity, and focus just on the sword clashes. Nothing else in the world matters. One's humanity means nothing, just the symphony of the blades. At first, Lauren did become a mindless combatant, but then glimpses of the Sanji River engulfs her vision. Lauren looks as if she was possessed by pure evil. Decker is delighted how Lauren is changing. But then, Lauren remembers how Kevin was entrusted with the responsibility of leading the samurai team. They await for her return. She then remembers all the time she has spent with fellow samurai rangers. Although the time was short, it's enough to drag Lauren back to humanity. Lauren was able to ignore Decker's way of the sword and focus on what she was fighting for, to return back to her newly formed family. Despite being grievously injured, Samurai Red prevails as Decker falls off the cliff. Defeated, Decker praised Lauren in the utmost disinterested manner. This was not the duel he has been looking for. Lauren is taken back home by the vessels to celebrate their victory and tend to her injuries. Before Mia approaches the rest of the Rangers, G returns the cooking books back to her. He says, "It is important to have resolve, but if one has no flexibility nor dreams to pursue, it's no different from being a Nighlok." Mike and Emily go to pick up some sushi from Antonio and tell him that Lauren is healing well from her fight against Decker. Meanwhile, Xandra was approached by a new Nighloks whose master would like to form an alliance with him. Xandra sends him out to prove his worth. This new Nighloks arrives and can transfer people's souls into inanimate objects, appearing to terrorize the city. Samurai Green and Samurai Yellow engage him and are later joined by their teammates. Afterwards, Mike and Emily discover that their teammate's souls has been imprisoned inside a cat statue, Lauren, a piece of sushi, Antonio, an electric fan, Mia, and a cheeky Figaro, Kevin. Back at the mansion, Emily was smiling, but she was shaking a lot while discussing the situation with G and Mike. Mike notices this and goofs off a bit by drawing on inanimate Lauren's face with whiskers, saying she is a cat now, which made Emily giggle. G was offended at first, but he later realized Mike only did it to calm Emily down. Faced with the task of figuring out how to undo the Nighloks curse without killing him, Mike and Emily devise a risky strategy for their next encounter with Nighloks. They practice together overnight. On the next day, Samurai Green and Samurai Yellow successfully trick the Nighloks into switching bodies with Samurai Green and eventually force him to undo his curse. This comes just in the nick of time for Antonio, who, as a piece of sushi, was about to be eaten by a hungry cat. Using the black box, Daimyo Green and Samurai Yellow use Megazord to destroy the enlarged Nighloks. Afterwards, Antonio remains traumatized by his brush with death, and the king of the Nighloks emerges from the Sanji River. Because of the events of the previous chapter, Antonio has developed a paralyzing fear of sushi, rendering him unable to help his teammates. When they are battling the Azazoth, Antonio, with lack of trainer, gives up being a samurai, decides to create his own successor. He says perhaps his successor could find the Mosasaurus disc in his place instead. The other samurai rangers try to encourage Antonio to get past his phobia by each braving their own worst fears. Lauren faints again in the haunted house. Mia eats coriander, which she ends up being in bed for the rest of the day. Emily dips her hand in a jar full of big spiders, which left her hands covered in boils as she tries to smile as if it were nothing. Kevin was forced to look at modern art, which he collapsed, muttering, "How can this be considered as art?" Mike is locked in the library without internet for the entire day, which made him seem like a madman locked inside a mental hospital. Later, Xandra and Cthulhu receive a visit from Traitor, who offers his aid. He was the one who has been sending Nighloks messengers to help Xandra. Xandra is not impressed, but when Xandra struck Traitor with his blade, Traitor did not move, pledging his unflinching loyalty to Xandra. Despite their efforts, Antonio quits the Samurai Rangers, promising to provide his team with a replacement. The Samurai Rangers deal with 2 Spitfangs before Traitor destroys the monsters, and personally tests out the Samurai Rangers' fighting skills. Confused that the Samurai Rangers are weaker than their predecessors, Traitor intensifies the odds by creating a Kirigami, which Lauren battles in the Samurai Megazord, as the vessels are overpowered by Traitor. At the last second, Ninja Gold arrives with his newly created Gamma Lantern Zord to drive Traitor off, as he has struck the same place where Xandra struck, which created an unexpected weakness. Antonio enlarged the Lantern Zord to take out the Kirigami. As the Samurai Rangers celebrate, Antonio reveals that he had originally created the Gamma Lantern Zord to replace him on the team, and that he was about to quit when G gave him lunch while he was blindfolded. It started off with small bits of fish, then rice, then a few different trials, it was a piece of sushi. Upon realizing he was eating sushi again, it cured him of his phobia. Kevin points out that samurai never use lanterns, but it's used by Japanese secret police. causing Antonio to start bickering with a Zord called Gamma. Emily was confused by how the Zord is sentient. Mike revealed he helped Antonio earlier with CGI power of life. He gave the Zord a personality as well. Mike also learned more about the CGI powers from helping Antonio in building Gamma and the Homaris Folding Zord. Fire symbol is disintegration, water symbol is tranquility, earth symbol is construction, sky symbol is harmony, light symbol is activation. This is also parallel to each of the team members' personality, but he's still trying to understand his tree symbol, as it's not only giving life. Emily says Mike is intelligent and will solve this mystery of life CGI. Also, the reason why this Zord is called Gamma, because it's kind of like a comic relief. It's a throwback to Alpha from Season 1 of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. You know, Alpha, Greek alphabet. In addition, Gamma is actually light radiation used in physics. So yeah, it makes sense. Xandred's headaches and angers are getting worse without Dayu's music, and the Fear Brew is not calming him down. Cthulhu heads to the human realm to look for Dayu, only spotting Traitor plotting against Xandred's forces. Traitor reveals to his followers that he allied himself with Xandred as part of his plans. Traitor hears Cthulhu and immediately attacks him. Traitor says Cthulhu is no different from him. Cthulhu is only using Xandred to further his plans and reminds Cthulhu's origins in becoming Nighloks is known to him. Unfortunately, Cthulhu being no match against Traitor retreats. This triggers the gap sensor to detect Nighloks movement. When the Samurai Ranger arrives to confront Traitor, Xandred also arrives at the same time. He is furious at Traitor's betrayal and attacks him relentlessly. The Rangers try to join into the fight, but Xandred is much more powerful with his hatred than the first time confronting Lauren. One blast from Xandred knocked all the Rangers out of morph. Xandred is dying from the process from rapid dehydration, so Traitor escapes Xandred's wrath. Daimyo Red summons the Fire Smasher Kanemo to attack Xandred, but the Nighloks resists the attack long enough to defeat Daimyo Red. After repairing Dayu's shamisen, the nearly dead Xandred passes it to Dayu. The Rangers were forced to retreat. Out of nowhere, Traitor shows up and reveals Dayu's shamisen and says she has always been placed on his side to spy on him. Throughout all this time, the tune from the shamisen makes him susceptible to a curse. Traitor tells Xandred he will live as a human for the rest of his life with no memories as poetic justice. Xandred was transformed into a human by a spell with the tune that Dayu plays on her shamisen. Later, the Nighloks ninjutsu launches its attack against the samurai, but there are no match against his shadow clones. Antonio recognizes this Nighloks' signature ninja abilities, but he himself is no match against it. While discussing with the group, Gamma and Antonio got into a fight. Gamma says, according to the Thunder Ninja Academy, a ninja needs to perform powers that alters the size or create duplicates of the user, kinda like the shadow clones, pointing out the fact that Antonio clearly failed. Then this leads to Gamma pointing out Antonio's imperfection, from ninja training all the way to Antonio being an incomplete ninja. A frustrated Gamma runs away, though Antonio expects him to come back. After failing almost every interview because he is a lantern, Gamma is found by Mia, who tries to talk some sense into him. But after he flies off upon refusing to accept Antonio's words about him, despite Antonio clearly misses Gamma, as he is a Gemini cricket to Antonio's Pinocchio. However, Mia is forced to join the others when the ninjutsu Nighloks begins his attack with the team overwhelmed by the monster's shadow clones once more when Mike drops his phone, which activated a flashlight, which shunned the Nighloks. The real ninjutsu Nighloks is forced to fall back. The Samurai Rangers retreat to treat their wounds. Although Antonio tells Mia not to meddle in his affairs, Mia finds it depressed Gamma working at a fast food trailer for a girl called Myron. Mia then consoles him with the others watching nearby as Antonio arrives and apologizes to Gamma for not understanding. Gamma apologizes for being too blunt as well. The two were interrupted by Myron asking if the two would like to take a photo, as she sees it's adorable with their friendship healing. Antonio and Gamma first took the photo, but the night shadow covered their faces. Then Myron suggests Gamma to turn on its light to remove the shadows. That second picture was clear as day. Inspired, the two figured out a way to take out the Nighloks shadow battle. The Samurai Rangers and Gamma confront ninjutsu Nighloks and take out all the clones with Gamma's light power. This light blast nullified all of the clones, weakening the real one. Samurai Pink transforms into Daimyo mode and finishes him off. The Samurai Megazord and Gamma battle the enlarged Nighloks and overwhelm him with their teamwork before using the Tezuda Buster to destroy him. The next day, as they celebrate his return, though Gamma attempts to control his impulses, he gets into another fight with Antonio for not being honest with his feelings. After discovering the unconscious human Xandred on the beach, Myron takes him to a bed in her fast food trailer, watching over him. The man had a dream about a tiny weird-looking Nighlok born from the rocks at the Sanji River. The Nighloksling ended up in the human realm and saw some children drowning. The fear of children immediately attracted it, but he saved them from drowning. The villagers saw him and calls him a monster, thought he was a threat to the children, and started attacking him. No matter how many good deeds he does, the tiny Azazel gets attacked. Then the man suddenly woke up. Myron asks if he's alright, as the man asks where he is, only for her to say that a doctor had looked him over and he has no injuries. The man asks who he is. Thank you, Riders and Rangers, for joining us in our episode of How to Fix Samurai Part 3. Alright, sorry for the long wait. Yeah, it took me forever to find a proper day to record, and yeah, the worst part about working on this would be the recording, and I'm so glad I'm able to do this. Looking forward to make more in the future. Also, if you have any comments, suggestions, please leave it down below, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a nice day.